Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the life of one of Rome's most notorious rulers, Emperor Commodus. Now, he was the son of a true legend, but his own story, well, it's a chilling descent into tyranny, sadism, and just absolute madness.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's something that has stumped historians for centuries. I mean, how does the heir to a golden age, a boy who was given literally every advantage, end up plunging an entire empire into an age of, well, iron and rust? The answer is a pretty disturbing journey into the mind of a monster.
To really understand Commodus, you first have to understand the man he was supposed to be, his father, the great Marcus Aurelius. This was a philosopher who spent most of his reign on the battlefield, and the shadow he cast was, well, it was immense. And that's really where our story begins. I mean, just look at this. The contrast is absolutely staggering. On one side, you've got the Stoic philosopher, a guy who wrote meditations on duty and self-control while commanding armies. And on the other side, his own son, a man obsessed with blood sport, decadence, and telling everyone how great he was. It is one of history's greatest and, frankly, most tragic contradictions. So, Commodus was the first emperor born in the purple in almost 100 years. What that means is he was born while his dad was already the emperor. This put this enormous, almost unbearable pressure on him from the second he was born. And get this, his mother, Faustina, had this dream that she gave birth to two snakes, and one was way more vicious than the other. When Commodus's twin brother died at age 4, you can bet that chilling prophecy felt all too real. Okay, so let's dig into his childhood, because this is where you can see how it all starts to build. The cracks in his character, that cruelty and narcissism, they started to show up long before he had absolute power over the Roman Empire. His father basically put him on the fast track to the top, probably to make sure the dynasty was secure. But look at these ages. He was given huge responsibilities so young. He's co-ruler at just 15. By 17, he's the youngest consul in Roman history. And by 18, he is the sole ruler of the known world. Think about that. He had all the power imaginable, with none of the maturity or moral compass to handle it. And if you want a perfect example of his early cruelty, this is it. This wasn't just some kid throwing a tantrum. It was a murderous rage. Now, a quick-thinking slave cleverly threw a sheepskin into the furnace to fake the smell of burning flesh and calm him down, but the intent was terrifyingly real. This was a flashing red light, a huge sign of the monster he was becoming. So, he becomes the sole emperor, and what's the first thing he does? He pretty much abandons all the responsibilities of the job. His father had managed the empire with wisdom. Commodus, on the other hand, was all about reckless indulgence. And the consequences for Rome, they were absolutely disastrous. This quote really says it all. It comes from the historian Cassius Dio, who actually lived through this period. He saw it firsthand. Commodus's reign marked a definitive, catastrophic turning point. That long period of Roman peace and prosperity, the famous Pax Romana, it just began to crumble under his watch. So instead of, actually ruling, he basically outsourced the job. He let his corrupt buddies, like his chamberlain Cleander, run the show. And these guys sold public offices to the highest bidder. To pay for his insane lifestyle, his gladiator games, his enormous harem, he devalued Rome's currency, which led to massive inflation. And, as he got more and more paranoid, he just started executing senators he didn't like. So while the entire empire is rotting from the inside out, where's Commodus? Well, his true passion wasn't in the palace. It was in the violent, bloody theater of the Colosseum. And this is where his cruelty and his ego were put on full, terrifying public display. You have to understand, this was a profound disgrace. For an emperor, the revered father of the Roman people, to step into the arena and perform as a gladiator, who were seen as the lowest of the low, it was just unthinkable. This obsession is what fueled the scandalous rumors that he wasn't really Marcus Aurelius' son at all, but the illegitimate child of a gladiator. He wasn't just some participant either. He was a mass executioner. He would have all these exotic, expensive animals brought to the Colosseum just so he could kill them. Giraffes, elephants, and in one infamous spectacle, he shot 100 lions with a bow and arrow. And he did it all from the safety of a raised platform. He turned the arena into his own personal, cowardly hunting ground. What he did in the arena, it wasn't sport. It was pure sadism and intimidation. He'd gather up citizens who had lost their feet, dress them up like serpents, and then club them to death. All his gladiator matches were rigged, so he'd always win. And in one truly bizarre moment, he cut the head off an ostrich and waved the bloody thing at the senators, sending a very clear message: you could be next. As his reign fell apart, Commodus's already huge ego just spiraled out of control into a full-blown god complex. He completely lost touch with reality. There's a perfect word for this: megalomania. And boy, was Commodus a textbook case. He wasn't happy just being an emperor anymore. In his mind, he was more than a man. He was a living god on earth. And here's the proof that he'd completely lost it. He didn't just want to rule Rome, he wanted to become Rome. He tried to erase centuries of history and remake the entire world in his own image, renaming everything from the city itself to its people to every single month on the calendar. It's just unbelievable. This was the peak of his delusion. He decided he was the Roman Hercules, a demigod of incredible strength. He even started walking around in public wearing a lion skin and carrying a club, demanding that everyone, including the Senate, worship him as a living god. By the year 192, the madness had just gone too far. His paranoia was completely out of control, and even the people closest to him were terrified for their own lives. They knew the bloody reign of the Gladiator Emperor had to end.
In the end, it didn't come in the arena. It came in his private chambers. His mistress, Marcia, found an execution list, and her name was right at the top. So she acted first, poisoning his wine. But he threw it all up, so the poison didn't work. The conspirators had to go to their backup plan: his personal wrestling partner, Narcissus, who strangled the emperor to death while he was helpless in his bath.
So, after he was finally dead, the Roman elite basically tried to hit the delete button on his entire existence. They performed an official act called damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory, tore down all his Hercules statues, and scrubbed the name Commodiana from the city of Rome for good. So, in the end, his rule wasn't just a personal failure. It was a catalyst for imperial decline. His death created a power vacuum that threw Rome into a brutal civil war, the Year of the Five Emperors. It was the definitive end of a long era of peace and stability. And that's the question his reign really leaves us with. Is this just some bizarre, horrifying chapter from ancient history? Or is it a timeless lesson about what happens when you give absolute power to a man with no virtue, no restraint, and an ego the size of an empire? It's a question that feels, well, terrifyingly relevant, even today.